And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside
Los Angeles.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to The Bald Truth. Phone number tonight, just like the last couple of weeks, it's a Skype line, 718-717-2200. That's 718-717-2200. The good news is I will be getting a brand new phone system, I think on Wednesday. So we will get back to the 800 number, but thank goodness we have Andrew Zarian live in New York to help us out. The guys from Queens Network, the guys who syndicate this broadcast. So he's going to be handling our phone calls as he has for the last couple of weeks. Andrew, you there, by the way?
Spence, I'm here.
Hey, what's happening?
Not much.
All right, listen, I know that you had a tough day, and I appreciate that you're working tonight. You're at the beach all day, you're drinking all day, you're watching soccer. I get it. But you know what? You're a trooper.
Listen, all that matters is that I'm here for work. That's all that matters.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Listen, if you're new to the broadcast, don't know who I am, why I'm here, I am the founder of the American Hair Loss Association, author of The Bald Truth and the Truth About Women's Hair Loss. And this is a broadcast that we've been doing for about 14 years. And all we talk about is dealing with hair loss. So if you're new and this is something that you're not interested in, then you might want to change the station, turn the dial, move on with your life. But I will say this, that, since 2/3 of men by the age of 35 are dealing with some degree of hair loss and 40% of hair loss sufferers are women, it's pretty unlikely that you're not going to have some sort of interest in this broadcast because, to tell you the truth, just about every household in America and around the world is affected by hair loss to some degree. It's just the way that it is. It is a ticking time bomb, a silent epidemic of biblical proportions that affects almost everyone at some point in their life. Now, it may be affecting your husband or your wife or your daughter or your son or your nephew or your siblings. But realize that if you're dealing with hair loss or if you know someone who's dealing with hair loss, it's hard for those who don't understand, I should say, it's hard for those who aren't dealing with hair loss to truly understand how it affects our lives. Now, if you're watching this broadcast and you see this, older gray-haired gentleman with with hair in his head, I started losing my hair at the age of 21, and I was lucky enough to have the wherewithal to kind of step back and make the right moves, not jump into hair transplant surgery, not jump into, trying to figure out, what the hell the hair club was. I mean, I figured it out pretty early on. And after I spent a lot of money on all kinds of lotions and potions, thousands of dollars, and after I've had consults all over the country to do something about my hair loss, I realized that, at least for the most part, especially back in the dark ages of hair loss, the entire industry was a scam. And I was lucky enough to find medication, FDA-approved medication. It's FDA-approved now since 1998 for hair loss. That really helped me stop the progression, or I should say slowed the progression of my hair loss, and really kind of gave me some time to kind of, get used to the process. Now, I have a lot of makeup on my head right now. It's a crazy, sprayed sculpture, but I'm 47 years old. And for me, this was, how I was able to deal with it. Now, there are a lot of guys out there who might be better equipped to deal with hair loss than I was. But normally what we talk about in this program and who we deal with are the guys who aren't really that well equipped to deal with it, especially at a young age. But, I always say this to you guys, that if I had my druthers, if I had my, the ability to just say, forget about it, just move on, shave my head, live my life, Forget about all the bullshit that's, we deal with as hair loss sufferers, trying to hide our hair loss, trying to keep our hair, trying to take, medication and doing whatever we do. I paint the back of my head, which sounds ridiculous, but you guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, products like Topic and Fulmore and Dermatch, I mean, these are multi-million-dollar a year products because there are so many people like me. But honestly, I think the guys that are able to deal with it and are equipped to deal with it and just either buzz their heads close or shave their heads completely, these are the guys that are winning. I wish that I can be, one of those guys. But at the age of 47, I still find it difficult to think of myself as completely bald. If things don't work out, if I continue to progress, if my medication stops working, if the hair fibers, still aren't, binding to whatever hair I have left in the back, what am I going to do? I always tell you guys I would probably, I'm definitely consider having surgical hair restoration, wearing a small piece or something, as the baldness grows, because I just don't feel comfortable without my hair. But again, there are plenty of guys who do. And tonight we have a guy who actually contacted me probably at the beginning of my career. We kind of started around the same time. His name is Todd Greene, and he founded a company called HeadBlade, and he actually is the inventor of the product, the HeadBlade, or I guess it's just called HeadBlade. I think most of you guys who been involved in hair loss for a while have probably heard of this product, probably seen this product, and maybe some of you guys have even purchased this product. And I would say, and a lot of the guys in the industry are not going to be happy when I say this, but I would say that the HeadBlade is probably the most empowering product in hair loss. And again, I wish that, I was equipped to just do what Todd has done. Not only does he live it, but, he, turned his Achilles heel into a tremendous product and a tremendous business. I want to welcome Todd Greene to the show. Todd, are you there?
Thank you. Can you hear me, Spencer?
I can. Hey, Todd, how are you, man?
I'm doing fine, but I actually had to call from I'm calling from my car. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we definitely have some problems.
All right, hold on a second. Okay.
Todd, were you able to hear my opening?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. But can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's breaking up a little bit, but we'll see if we can make it work. How close are you to a landline?
I'm probably 5 minutes away.
Okay. Well, we'll see what we can do. If we can make it work. If not, maybe you can call back in a couple of minutes when you get to a landline. But Todd, I will say this, and I work with hair transplant surgeons. I've been in this industry for a long time. There are companies that want me to endorse their products and services. And the truth of the matter is, I really believe that you have the most empowering product on the market. You basically developed and designed a tool specifically for guys and girls to shave their heads. And to me, that's amazing.
I appreciate it. It's funny because listening to what you're talking about now, you're dealing with hair loss over the years. I had the exact same thing when I was 21. And so for me, when you talk about it being empowering, I was on the fence of, people would tell me to get Rogaine. I met people that had transplant. So for me, I just kind of got that place of, I'm just going to shave it because, A, it's the cheapest alternative. And
yeah.
The idea of balding is you're going to keep losing your hair.
Hey, Todd, I'm going to have to interrupt you, man. We're having a lot of trouble hearing you. So you have the phone number, right? You said you're getting close to a landline?
Yeah, I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
Yeah, call us back. All right, I appreciate it.
All right.
Phone number 718-717-2200. Andrew, so you think it's a cell phone? Or you think it has to do with Skype on the cell phone, or?
No, it's a cell phone.
Okay.
I'll be good when he calls from a landline.
Well, this dude, I mean, it's funny because he contacted me he started his business, I think, in 99. I was already on the air. Contacted me, and he may not remember the whole conversation, but I remember parts of it at least. And I remember he wanted to kind of get advertised on the program, and I gave him the price, and at the time, the guy could not afford it. And I was like, look, whatever, come back, whenever you want to come back. Now he's doing a $9 million a year business. His HeadBlade razors and his accessories are in like 15,000 stores. He has a huge online business. And I think, and we'll talk about it when he calls in, I think his original design is in the New York's Museum of Modern Art. And it's a 2000, I think it was a 2000 Time Magazine Design of the Year, which is amazing. I remember this guy calling me up, and I'm like, yeah, this is our price. And he was like, I really can't afford it right now. Can we work something out? I'm like, nope, sorry. Call me back when you have a little bit more money.
It's a small world, Spence, because he contacted, I believe his publicist contacted Chauncey Hayden.
Yes.
And to be put in touch with you. He goes, he got a message from his publicist, and Chauncey was excited thinking he's going to get a guest on his show. And it turns out he goes, hey, listen, do you have Spencer Kobren's info? Because I really want to get my client on there.
Yeah.
By the way, you have a caller online, too.
All right. Let's see who it is. Hey, who's this? You're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hey, Todd? George?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know what's going on with the phone. It's crazy. It's George.
Hey, what's happening, George? How are you?
I'm having trouble getting the internet feed. I got to go get... I just got you're fading in and out. Is that Andrew you're talking to?
Yes.
Hey, Andrew. It's good to hear your voice, man. I got to go get a new internet router and stuff for my dad's signal next door so I can get your program, man. I'm feeding off my dad's signal, and it's just breaking down so bad. I'm sorry about that.
Why don't you get like a 100-foot Ethernet cord and just run it from your dad's window?
Well, that was what the guy at Best Buy recommended, but bringing across the side yard to my house is going to be like limbs falling and yard people working. So George always has issues. Yeah, I know. George is trying to get his shit together. Sorry about that, guys. Anyway, I'm trying to get my act together here so I can get your program. And everything's just crazy, man. Those numbers you gave me where I could sit and listen to the background, those things aren't working anymore, man.
Well, the reason they're not working is because I don't have a phone system anymore. And right now what we do is we are taking all of our Skype calls through New York, through Andrew. I will have a new phone system coming in on Wednesday, so everything should be up and running again.
Well, I'm going to keep this very brief and concise and focused. Andrew, I need you to tell me, man, because we're going to get back to the ball show here. I got two options. Either run the Ethernet cable over, which is going to be a pain in the ass, or I can get one of these new dual band in routers that the guys think will probably work, like a Netgear or whatever that would, like the 5 whatever gig dual band that he thought would take care of it. If not, maybe a repeater at my house.
The best thing you could do,
possibly
George?
just forego the new router and the repeater and just go an Airport Extreme Apple router and put it at my dad's house to just get the damn signal over here. What do you recommend?
First of all, George, I would run the wire. That would be a solid connection. You could run the wire and you could get an Ethernet cable. You could get a wireless device for your area. And you could just set it up that way. Either way, you got to extend it because it might be too much of a signal, too long of a signal for it to reach. But the second thing you could do, if you're experiencing any problems now, we have a live audio feed, so you can listen just exclusively to the audio rather than looking at the video. If you're on thebaldtruth.com or you're on gfqlive.tv, you could just hit the audio feed and it'll save a ton on bandwidth.
Just hit the audio feed.
I mean, you're not going to be able to look at my face and my hair, which I know that's something that that's why you tune into the show. But you'll be able to hear us at least.
I do love you, but I'm not as in love with you as Joe from Staten Island.
Okay.
I mean,
now my feelings are hurt. All right, George, so listen, we're going to take some calls. I'm waiting for my guest to call back. See if you can set that up and then call back.
All right, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks
you got
for the
it.
input.
All right, man.
Thank
Good talking to you. 718-717-2200. That's the beauty of live internet broadcasting and live radio.
I become Leo Laporte on your show.
It's It's unbelievable.
We have Joe on the line if you want to take.
All right,
him
let's take Joe. Joe, what's happening, man?
I'm sitting here busting out with the major international news, and
let's do it. Let's do it. Tell us what's going on.
Like, I must give this news. I must give it.
Give it. Go ahead.
All right, as you know, the major developing news out of Barcelona hit the wires today.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
I'm sure you're well aware of it, especially your staff. I'm sure you've been bombarded with emails.
We've sure.
As you know, in the Barcelona Head Conference this weekend, Dr. Bernard from L'Oreal announced that L'Oreal has been, conducting obviously top secret trials. They are releasing a product in September of this year, 2 months from now. Okay? I have no evidence either way on this. Don't get me wrong. I just report the news. I don't make the news.
Right.
That they are stating their product, which is we call Neogenics, or Neogenics, we sold for $100 a month. And the only reason it's coming out so soon is because they're smart enough to market it as a cosmetic. They don't play games with the FDA like certain other people do. I don't have to go down to the
Well,
list.
I don't want to give anybody false hope. You know that L'Oreal had a product in Europe for years that they were making claims, or at least there were claims made, not necessarily by L'Oreal, because it depends on this. I mean, they were definitely using the legal verbiage, but it was a product that was thought to grow hair for many, many years. I'd say for the last 8 or 9 years. I think the product was Amycel. What is it called?
Amonexil.
Yeah, Amonexil. So, I mean, this is not a new game for L'Oreal. So, I don't know. Anything that comes out as a cosmetic, I have to just cautious everybody. It may work to some degree, but, we just don't know. So I wouldn't be jumping for joy at this point, Joe. But, I don't mean to be a downer.
Well, I'm just reporting the news. I'm not saying jump for joy.
I know that.
But I'm saying that this product allegedly acts right on the stem cells themselves. That is allegedly causing the hair growth cells to remain dormant. And guess who, coincidentally, which doctor is very involved with L'Oreal? Take a wild guess.
Who?
I'm not sure if he's involved with this. But guess who's involved with L'Oreal?
Who?
The most famous hair doctor in the world, Dr. George Costa-Rallis.
Yeah, well, he's involved with everybody.
Connected anyway? I don't know.
Well, Joe, I appreciate that news. You know what? I didn't play your opening, so I'm going to play your opening because, I think people are, they miss it if I don't play it. So here you go.
I'm sorry.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like to may I reiterate it?
my name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
my name is
Joe from Staten Island.
All right, Joe, listen, I appreciate that news. I just don't want anybody to get their hopes up. L'Oreal has been at this for a long time. And again, if it's coming out as a cosmetic, I always say, okay, maybe there's some sort of, maybe it does stimulate hair growth to some degree. Maybe it might help with the miniaturization process or is keeping things, like you said, in a growth phase. I don't know. I just wouldn't be too excited about it.
That's just reporting the news. That's my obligation to it, isn't it?
It is your obligation, and I appreciate it. When you report something on the air, Joe, these kids go out there and they are I already see what's happening on the forum today.
Right.
I don't want anyone to have any false hope.
But I'm not saying it works or doesn't work, but the real point I'm trying to make is, why does it matter? Why does it Hisingen just release something as a cosmetic and circumvent the FDA? That's how easy it is. This is what I can't.
Because they want to be able to they're doing it clinically, but they want to be able to say that this product actually grows hair.
Please help me out, man. Please.
What'd you say?
Please help me out, man, because I can't put my arms around why these companies are playing around with the FDA.
Joe, listen, I'm going to put you on hold. Our guest, Todd Greene, is back on the air. And I'll keep you potted. I mean, Andrew's going to keep you potted down for a while, but we'll get back to you, all right?
Well, I'm sorry, man.
All right, let's see if we can get a better connection with Todd. Hey, Todd, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Oh, it's perfect, man. So,
okay. Sorry about that.
Oh,
as you know, I live in LA, as you do.
Yes.
And, was not able to make it back to the office, and I'm actually in Upland.
Oh, wow.
So, it's a lot of traffic between here and Culver City.
All right, well, listen, no worries. I appreciate the fact that you're able to get to a landline. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you got involved in this. You are a brethren. You were a fellow hair loss sufferer who started to lose his hair at a young age. I was just telling a story when you were getting to a phone that you actually contacted me, or somehow we were in contact many years ago when we both were starting. I was on the air for like a year, and I remember you and I spoke, and we were talking about potentially advertising on the show, but you were just a startup at the time. And it's just it's amazing to me how far you have come and just how well you've done with this product.
Well, I appreciate that. And as I was saying before, back in, like 1991, when I was really going through the hair loss thing, it was the whole thing of whether I was going to embrace bald, which, we can go back and talk about the word bald because I have a huge problem with bald as a word. But yeah, by the time 1994 came and I was living in Seattle and I had shaved my head, and then I moved to Los Angeles in 97. In 99 was when I actually came out with HeadBlade. And I remember because I started out of my apartment, I didn't have any financing, and I just created it online and started selling it online. That's when I first heard of you and found your show, because, obviously online is a very different beast than it was in 1999.
Right. Absolutely. I think it's interesting that I'm still doing this. Can you believe it?
Oh, it's amazing. But that's where people that find their niche, there's space out there for you, and it's very important that whoever you were talking to before about L'Oreal and the large companies,
right.
The internet gives a very even playing field and allows people to find the truth. And I think it's very important because, your show and the name of your show is so good, because so many guys, when they go searching for hair loss and restoration and transplants, they really got to find the truth. And the truth is not necessarily coming from those big companies, which make their money and profits off this hope or false hope of a guy trying to keep his hair.
Well, and I've made a lot of enemies over the years because I've basically exposed the truth, and I continue to tell the truth about it. And even though I work with doctors in the hair transplant field, and I have an organization where I recommend doctors, and doctors pay an annual screening fee and all of that stuff, I still tell people that surgery is your last resort. Personally, for me, if I had the wherewithal, like I said, I have the wherewithal, but I wasn't equipped to deal with just shaving my head. I think that is a great first option, or just trim it down, whatever it is. Live life without worrying about, if you can, treating your hair loss, because to me, you guys are the guys that win. The fact that you're able to move on with your life, live your life without having to worry about, taking medication and keeping every hair in place. I mean, believe me, it's a real pain in the ass. To me, a guy like you is free.
Well, I appreciate that. And I got to tell you, for HeadBlade being around for 12 years, we both have, the idea of it's a lifestyle. Shaving your head is a lifestyle. And there is let's say a period, not a mourning period of losing your hair, but it's a total different look, And so a lot of guys, when I tell them, when you're going to shave your head, like I did it because I was 22 and I was actually moving from Philadelphia to Seattle. And I had put up with, I think I told you before where, I used to love getting my hair cut, and I went to go get my hair cut, and the beautician said to me, I'm not going to cut it because it's just starting to look good. Yeah. And then she gave me a brochure on Rogaine. And this is 1989.
Yeah, that's depressing.
I'd gone to what?
It's depressing that someone's just your hairdresser is giving you a brochure for Rogaine. To me, that would have just thrown me over the edge.
Doesn't care about losing the business.
Say that again.
But that's a good hairdresser.
Yeah, she doesn't want to lose the business. Sure.
But it's one of those things that when I left Philadelphia to move to Seattle, and I was leaving my job. I was working at a good college in Philadelphia, and I thought, okay, if I'm going to shave my head, I was 22, 23, I thought now's the time to do it, because when I get to Seattle, nobody's going to say, oh, you look stupid with a shaved head. For all they knew, I never had hair before.
That's right.
So you definitely have to take into consideration, because a lot of guys, they'll...
Hello? Oh, man, we lost his connection. Andrew, you there?
Yeah, he just turned off.
All right. Well, hopefully he calls back. He's got a really interesting story. And, you take a look at his image, his picture on his site or, just on the internet.
He by mistake put you on hold. I think he's back. Hang on. There we go.
You there, Todd?
Yeah.
Hey. So so what were you saying?
Oh, just about in terms of when you go to shave your head, it's a great time if you're moving to a different place, or, I tell people when they shave their head, change something else, like maybe the style of your glasses, because you definitely have to get used to how you look.
Right.
As you look in the mirror every day. And
now when you first shaved your head, when you first said, all right, this is what I'm going to do, did you have significant hair loss to the point where your looks already changed, or did you catch it when you were just starting and you said, you know what, I don't want to see this process happening?
Well, kind of think about James Taylor. I definitely had where I was 22 and I was really thin on top.
Okay.
And, then I started combing my hair straight down and kind of putting a little part in it.
Right.
But if I went to a restaurant and they had the halogen lights from the ceiling in the bathrooms that are pointing straight down.
Yeah.
When I would go to wash my hands, I could see the top of my head.
Sure.
So I was definitely losing it, and it was obvious. It wasn't like a patch in the back of my head. The whole top of my head was thinning.
Now, how did it affect you? You seem like obviously you're very well equipped to deal with this. You shaved your head, you went for it. But initially, was there the normal, or not the normal, but the way most guys deal with it, the panic and then the denial? And then, or was it just like kind of a pretty quick process for you? You saw what was happening and you decided to take charge.
No, well, I have an older brother who always used to make fun of me. And one of the things he used to say to me was, I have ears and my ears stick out. And he always used to say I look like a car with its doors open.
Right.
And, I used to leave enough hair to cover my ears.
Right.
And then when I started getting it cut short, I remember once I was at the beautician and she was actually pinning my ears back, trying to do it without me noticing of what it would look like with my ears pinned back.
Oh, wow.
So I used to deal with that. And then when I did shave my head, because people used to joke about my hair loss, and it was really kind of whittling away. You're like 22, 23 and think, oh, I'm a pretty good looking guy and I'm smart and I have a good job. And then you're like, wow, I'm losing my hair and it's really depressing. And I just, I didn't want to deal with, even my mom bought me like a starter kit for Rogaine.
Yeah.
And that was really depressing.
Now, did you speak about it with your mom, or did she just offer it to you?
She just offered it to me, which is, one of those, it's like somebody offering you breath mints. And
right.
You're like, really? My breath smells that bad.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was, to the point where, oh my gosh, but I never got into the hat thing.
Yeah. I did. When I first started to lose my hair, I was the baseball cap guy, and I wore it everywhere. I wore my hat all the time. I'd say for about 2 years. And, until, of course, I came to grips with everything, and I'm lucky enough to find, what I found to help myself and all that stuff. But it devastated me, because I was the guy with the great hair, the long hair. It was kind of really part of my, it was part of my image. It was a big part of me.
Well, when I went to Bowdoin College in Maine, and I'm from Maine, and Bowdoin's a really good, small, private liberal arts college. And I was that kid from Maine, and I'm kind of like, when I talk about HeadBlade, people write me if they see me on TV because they have an idea or an invention and they want to ask. And there's that whole adage of it's going to be harder, it's going to cost more, and it's going to take longer.
Right.
Right. That's when you do any kind of endeavor.
Right.
That when I went to college, Bowdoin was the only place I applied, and I was pretty naive think if I really sat back and thought, oh, geez, if I don't get into Bowdoin, I have nowhere to go.
Right.
But my essay to Bowdoin was all about how vain I was about my hair. Like, I played basketball in high school, and we made the playoffs, and everybody shaved their heads except me and another guy.
Yeah, you told me that story. That's wild.
Weird things that, 15 or 20-something years later, I'm the Sly Sperling of head shaving,
right?
Absolutely.
Listen, and and it's an interesting, comparison. But to me, what you do, and I'm not just saying this to stroke you. Again, I think this is the most empowering product in hair loss. You just completely took charge. Cy just decided to cover it up, do what he did, and obviously he did very well for himself. But you're just like, screw it, no cover-ups. This is us. This is the way we were made. I'm going to do whatever I can to live my life comfortably as a bald guy, and I want to, empower other guys to do the same thing. And that's
totally. And that's. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. We're on. We have a Skype. We have a mixed minus issue.
For our yin and yang, and if Nike hadn't done the just do it, I do embody HeadBlade, and I do love that it is the, hey world, here I am. And as much as I get it from guys who are suffering from hair loss, I got to tell you, the most inspirational stories I hear are from people that are afflicted with cancer and other people that lose their hair through like alopecia, or, if they're going through chemo. Because those people, this is like a side effect of their, taking drugs to fight off, the fight of their life.
Right.
And if somebody just hands them a generic razor from a Gillette or a Schick, it kind of reminds these people of, oh, I have to shave my head. And it's just a very cold, nothing to do with a lifestyle of head shaving. It's just another depressing fact that they have to shave their head. Well, when somebody gives them a HeadBlade, it puts such a spin on it that these people.
What happened?
This is a lot different than it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago even. But these people who are going through such a battle of their life, when someone gives them a HeadBlade, to them, that goes a little bit in making them feel like that's not what they should be worrying about.
Right. No, I agree. And
any guy. What?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. We have a mixed minus issue because we're doing Skype, but go ahead.
Okay. I would say to any guy out there that's on the fence, obviously shaving your head is the cheapest alternative. But you got to remember, there's so many things that you really, should be worrying about, whether it's your mortgage, your job, all these things. And the hair is kind of, to me, and obviously I'm speaking with 20-something years of head shaving,
right,
should be your biggest fear.
But that's the thing. That's the difficult thing for people to get over, and that's why I do what I do, and I'm able to do what I do, because there's so many, the majority of guys out there losing their hair don't, maybe they eventually come to terms with it and they are able to do what you do. But most guys, for whatever reason, it's a very, very, very difficult road. I know guys who call this program who are like in their 60s, and they've been dealing with hair loss since they were 18, 19 years old, and it still affects them. Even though they've been bald for many years, maybe they've had some transplants, whatever it is, they've gone down that whole road of treating their hair loss, they're still not 100% happy. And a lot of these guys say, you know what, because I always preach there is life after hair loss. No matter what you need to do to feel comfortable in your own skin. I do what I do to feel comfortable in my skin. You do what you do to feel comfortable in your own skin. But there is life after hair loss. And there are guys that call in, as one guy, Marcus, says, well, there's life after hair loss, but it's kind of like a half a life. So there's that mindset, which seems to be...
Say
that again?
Does he shave?
No, he actually, unfortunately, ended up having some really bad procedures, and now he's had repair work. And so he went down the surgical route, unfortunately, before, in the dark ages of hair transplant surgery, when, there was really no information out there. There was obviously no bald truth. There were doctors who were just doing these, archaic, just gruesome procedures. And I can't even believe, there are doctors who are still in the business, who are kind of world-renowned hair transplant surgeons, and they've definitely evolved over the years. But they became who they are because of all, in my view, the damage that they did early on in their careers. And, there's so many walking wounded out there. So, I think you're extremely lucky that you never went down that route, especially, we're close in age. I'm a couple of years older than you. But I mean, if you decided, I'm going to have a hair transplant in 1989 or whenever you started to deal with your hair loss, you would have been fucked.
Yeah.
It would have been over.
Yeah. Do you think, I get a question about that? Because I have friends who have had hair transplants, and that you and I spoke about the new procedure that, like his hair clinic that are doing the skin, scalp pigmentation.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to obviously I would love if everybody shaved their head, but I do understand that everybody has their road in life and what they're comfortable with. And I think I was very fortunate that early on, I took the leap and I shaved my head. And I'll tell you, my brother, who's a year and a half older than me, he for about, always made fun of me. And then when I started shaving my head, he made fun of me. And he made fun of me about my ears, and he was losing his hair. And a year and a half ago, he finally started shaving his head. And for him, it was a much more agonizing decision because he had lived with the hair loss that much longer.
Yeah, he struggled. He suffered in his life a lot more than you did already. You freed yourself early on. So I mean, who wins? You weren't even thinking about it anymore. You just lived your life. You pursued your aspirations, and you developed your obviously your business, and you lived a life without this angst, without this worry that your brother was dealing with, and he may not have talked about it with you.
And I was very lucky. And I got to tell you, when I moved from Philadelphia to Seattle, and I'm a white Jewish guy from Maine, and I'll tell you, I didn't know that the skinheads were in the Pacific Northwest until I moved there.
Yeah.
And back in 1992, if you're white and you shaved your head, there were a lot of bad, crazy stereotypes.
Yes.
It was cancer boy, AIDS baby, skinhead, gay. There were all these, where people would say, he's shaving his head. Why is he shaving his head?
Yeah, unless you were Yul Brynner or Kojak, it just didn't make sense to anybody.
Totally. And I was going to mention about when I did start shaving my head. Oh, what I want to tell you is when I did move cross country, after I was in Seattle, for a year or two, I went back to using clippers because it was just too hard to shave every day. But when I did move to Seattle, it took me about 2 months to really get comfortable with how I looked, because every time I looked in the mirror with my ears stuck out. And it was funny because I was in a bar in Wyoming and I was talking to some guy and I was telling him, my brother, I don't know why I was saying this, but I said, my brother always says, he said, my brother says I look like a car with its doors open. And the guy said, oh, you don't look like that. And I said, well, thank you. He goes, no, with your head effed up like that, you look like a convertible with its doors open.
Oh, shit.
And so, yeah, I mean, everybody can make fun of me. But I did think when I looked in the mirror that I looked like baby Huey.
Okay.
And then I thought the problem with being white and being light skinned is, let's say you own a house, right? You want your house to look big. And what do? You paint your house white.
Yeah.
And so then I was thinking, my head just looks really, really big because it's white.
Right.
And my ears must look like shutters or something.
Well, I'm looking at your image now. I'm looking at your picture now, and you pull it off, dude. I'm telling you, you look really. I mean, maybe you grew into it. I don't know. Maybe you got more buff as you get older, or I don't know what it is, but I mean, it looks right.
Well, I can't. I do see pictures of me with hair, and I definitely went through, like when I was in college. I was a big Celtics fan, and whenever the Celtics would play the Lakers, I would always slick my hair back like the coach for the Lakers. And then I had hair kind of like, the guy from 30 Rock. What's the brothers?
Alec Baldwin.
And Baldwin.
Yeah.
And so when I started losing my hair, it was really depressing.
Well, listen, let's talk about, how did you come up with this concept?
Well, for me, the head shaving part, when I moved to LA, I've been shaving pretty religiously for like 4 or 5 years. But the problem with head shaving for me is I would talk to guys and say, hey, how do you shave your head? And everybody had a different way. And what I realized for myself was because I'm, white and I have dark hair, same thing when you watch the infomercials, they kind of prey on the fact that the bald spot shows up crazy on a white guy because he has dark hair, white skin. And where you see that,
contrast,
white skin blaring through, that's what you want to cover up. So for me, I was shaving at night because it was taking me like 20 minutes to shave. But then by the next day, I'd have 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
So you could see my hairline, and it really bothered me. So I really wanted to have a clean shave in the morning, but it took too long. So that's why when I came up with the HeadBlade, the whole idea was I wanted the easier way to shave, and I wanted a faster way to shave, and I wanted to be able to shave in the shower. So I made some prototypes out of clay by hand, and I remember I got really mad because I would go to Home Depot and I'd buy these, like couplings and stuff that you could use as a finger ring, and then I had some clay and Fimo or Sculpey, which is like a modeling clay.
Right.
And I was a liberal arts major at college, so you can buy clay that's like a plastic and it already comes in different colors. But then the blade that I had to test it with was a Gillette Atra. And the Gillette handles at the time were all metal. And so I could go buy a Gillette handle and I could saw off the tip of it that holds a blade.
Right.
Then I'd embed it into the clay, and then you'd have to bake it. And after like the 5th or 6th prototype, it's really funny because when you have an idea, you think the whole world is like looking in your window. They steal your idea.
Yeah.
And I got really mad because I didn't want to give Gillette any more money than I had to.
Right.
So instead of buying more razors and more blades, I would make a prototype and then I'd tear it apart just so I could use that piece that holds the blade.
Right.
Looking back, I only have like 2 prototypes because all the others are just scattered in pieces. So I started making prototypes till I got one that worked. And for me, the big breakthrough was, I wanted you to be able to use your finger as the handle. If you saw the movie Awakenings, or have you ever heard of the author?
Sure, I saw the movie.
Okay, so there's a term called proprioception. And Oliver Sacks, I don't know why I attribute it to him, but it's knowing where your extremities are without looking.
Right.
And the hardest part about shaving your head is shaving the back. And when you shave your face or your legs, you always use your dominant hand. And if you're shaving your head, there are some really weird angles if you're using a conventional razor. So my whole thing was with proprioception, it's if your fingers can touch your head or your feet, you know where your hands are. If you're trying to use a regular razor and your fingers aren't touching your head, it's kind of hard to gauge the angle and the pressure.
Right. That makes sense.
The whole thing was to put the blade on my finger, and then when I started making prototypes, the razor on your head was kind of like a seesaw unless you create a wheelbase like a car. And that's where I created the HeadBlade with the suspension. The first version just had a little bump in the back. The other ones after that had wheels. And the whole idea is you just drive the razor along your head, kind of like you'd be, if you had hair, playing with your hair.
Now, does the razor is it slightly curved? I'm looking at it right now. Or is the razor actually straight?
We have the suspension, you have the wheels in the back and the blade in the front. The blade automatically pivots. So the whole idea is you don't put any pressure on the blade pivots, and there's enough, let's say, clearance under the body of the HeadBlade to follow
the curve of your scalp.
Curve, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a very, very amazing looking product. Now, the product in 2000, so what year was this when you were putting the prototype together?
Well, it was funny because I did the prototypes in like early 98. And then if, anybody searches HeadBlade or Todd Greene and reads like the history of HeadBlade, when I first got applied for the patents, I wrote to Gillette and Schick and I said, hey, I've invented the world's best head shaving razor. Call me if you want to talk. And I never heard back from Gillette. And Schick, I actually got a form rejection letter. And then I started making the website, and I actually put the HeadBlade online in July of 1999.
Wow.
And if you use, the Wayback Machine?
I do, sure.
And if you go to the Wayback Machine, I love looking at websites using that.
Yeah, mine was ridiculous. It was like I had some guy do it for me. It was just a big picture of me and like a picture of my book. And that was it. I think that was in 97, 98.
And it's still there, right?
Yeah. It's ludicrous.
Yeah. I love the Wayback Machine because it kind of talks about the history of like your show or my product through the years.
That's right.
And it's awesome. So anyways, I started selling it in 99 online. And I remember, I had no employees. I was doing it on my apartment. And my ex-wife, she's my ex-wife now. She was actually my wife at the time.
You there, man?
You
broke up for a second. Right after you mentioned your ex-wife, we lost you.
Say it again.
Right after you said that talked about your ex-wife, we lost you. So you got to repeat yourself.
It's probably the ghost of her, even though she's still around. Anyway, yeah, she invented Skype, I guess. So I worked out of the apartment. I had no employees. I created my own website. And I remember once I went to this clothing store and I wanted a nice suit. And she came home and I was like, oh, don't go in the bedroom yet. I'm, laying out a suit and some other stuff to see what goes together. She looked at me and she goes, what are you doing? Why are you buying a suit? I said, I don't know, for meetings and stuff. And she looked at me and she said, and she pointed to the bedroom and then she pointed to the office and she said, all you do every day is you go from that room to that room. Who's going to see you?
Sounds like my wife.
She said what?
It sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
She wants me to get out of the house after all these years.
Yeah, wonderful. I said, we get mail and I go pick up your dry cleaning and I do all your other errands. Anyways, so I had it online and I had an 800 number that came to the apartment. And I would answer the phone in the middle of the night and take orders. The next day I'd wake up and I'd look and I'd see, oh, wow, I got a couple of orders because I didn't even remember taking the orders.
Right.
And I sent HeadBlades and a little press kit to a bunch of magazines. And I remember the magazines did not want to write about HeadBlade because they said I was an internet company. But if I found one store that would sell HeadBlade, that was a good store that they liked, which I found Fred Siegel.
Yeah,
you know Fred Siegel?
Sure, absolutely.
And Fred Siegel decided to sell HeadBlade, and then all of a sudden the magazines wrote about it.
Really? So Fred Siegel's, that's interesting that they were the first store to sell it. It seems, I guess it's a good fit.
Well, they have a bath and a beauty section, and back then most of those had very small men's segments.
Yeah.
And the HeadBlades, HeadBlade is a design item, and at the time, it wasn't in Walgreens, it wasn't in Rite Aid, it wasn't in Publix. So it's kind of a neat little gadget that they thought, well, yeah, if you're going to get press, and the magazines write about it, and they love Fred Siegel, like they love Kitson, and they love like Howie Mandel, who's a HeadBlader, bought his at Fred Siegel.
Yeah, now, it's interesting. Howie lives in my neighborhood. I see him a lot. And, for years, and I don't know, I mean, at least in my expert opinion, it looked like he was wearing, hair. Now, I could be wrong. But he just, I guess at some point decided, you know what, enough is enough. And he just came back on the scene as a bald guy. And I got to tell you, I mean, it really works for him.
Well, it was funny because I remember at one point after, I've met him a few times and I talked to him and he's worn my stuff on Jay Leno and he talked about it on a couple of shows. There was a time when he was still performing in Vegas, and up on the jumbo screen in Vegas, they still showed him with hair.
Yeah.
And that was part of, he was doing his hidden Howie things. And so I think once he started shaving, and it was before all the huge, it was before Deal or No Deal, but it was before Howie's second life of exploding.
Unbelievable. He really exploded.
And I think there was a time there after he shaved his head that people did not recognize him.
Yeah.
So I think he used it to his advantage in doing all his videos. So they weren't really advertising, hey, how he's shaving his head.
I think it obviously it works for him. He looks great, and in person, I mean, he's not he's not a big guy. He's kind of like a thin guy, and his head's not that big. It fits. There are guys who have the huge head, and I'm looking at you. You said you had a big head. I mean, it fits you. For me, I would look like Kane from Kung Fu. It would be ridiculous, but who knows? Maybe at some point I'm going to say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to move to some island. I'm going to shave my head. And then I'll call you up for the HeadBlade.
My brother, who said I look like a car with its doors open. Well, my dad used to say my brother is the only person he knows who could smoke a cigar in the rain and it not get wet.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you would never think he looked great with a shaved head.
Yeah. And
he looks great with a shaved head.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. Like I say, it's something that, we have a guy, my guy's helping us run he's a good friend of ours, and he is, I don't mention his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but
you could say he's brother.
He recently decided to really trim his hair short, and he was struggling over this. I mean, he just did not want to do this, and he's been holding on to it for many, many years. And he actually wore a small piece in the back. And he recently cut it down, and now you can see everything. He didn't shave it completely, but I got to tell you, he just has kind of like a different air about him now. He just seems so much more confident than when he was in hiding. And it's inspirational. When I hear stories like yours and I see what you've done with your company and that there's so many people who are using your product. I mean, I was reading your website, and I know that the information on it's a little dated because I think it's from 2009, but at least in 2009, you guys were doing $9 million a year in blades and products.
Right.
What are you guys doing now?
Say that again?
And how are you guys doing now? I mean, 4 years later.
Doing fine. That's I got to say, that's probably, at the time, that was anticipated because we were around 7, and then we had CVS, we lost CVS. So I will say we're around the same number.
Right.
But we have actually a huge introduction in 2 months because there's, in terms of HeadBlade, I would say 10% of head shavers even know who we are.
Yeah.
We're up against huge companies with huge advertising budgets. But for the people that have used HeadBlade, we have a huge ambassadors. We have a lot of people that really, really love HeadBlade. And then there are some people that say, well, I tried it. I didn't get used to it. I went back to the Fusion or the Pro Glide. And it's because some people with HeadBlade, obviously, there's a learning curve because the blade is in the front.
Right.
That was because of the original design, the way the blade technology was, in 1999 and 2005. The HeadBlade that we're coming out with in 2 or 3 months, it's going to be online. It's the HeadBlade ATX. We've actually turned it around, and the blade is now in the back because we have a brand new blade, which is a 4-blade, and then we have another 6-blade option. So it's one of those, it's a little more like a conventional razor, still fits on your finger, still has a suspension, and still looks exactly like, you can tell it's a HeadBlade.
Right.
So that is the item that's going to get us to that next level, which, Gillette has, 5 different levels? They have the Fusion, Pro Glide, Mach 3, Sensor, Atra.
Well, Todd, listen, I want you, I've never actually, I've seen the product in the store, but I've never actually held it. I've never opened the package and held the product myself. I would love for you, when you come out with the new, iteration of the HeadBlade, to send me a couple. And I'd love to talk about maybe give it to a couple of friends who are considering shaving their head. Maybe we can do something on the air.
I would love to do that. Yeah, the new HeadBlade, and if anybody, I guess I'd say join our Facebook if you want updates on that stuff. But yeah, I'd love to do more because I think, in terms of, and sometime I'd love on your show to talk about the word bald.
Well, you know what?
That discussion.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that too, and maybe the next time we can, maybe in a couple of weeks you want to come back on. And you know what? You should always feel free to call in if you want to just talk for like 5-10 minutes. You got something to say. You feel free to become part of the community.
Okay, I think it's it'd be a great learning experience for me, because most of the time I hear from people who have made the decision, not from people that are on the fence.
Or either they're on the fence or they are holding on to every hair that they have, and they're not going to let it go until they're dead. Like Joe from Staten Island. I mean, you're going to have to pull that last hair out of his cold, dead hands, and he'll be holding on to it, maybe trying to, glue it on. There are guys like that, and you know what? I've been like that, and I still am. But again, I'm lucky. I'm in a different position than a lot of the guys out there that watch the Bald Truth or listen to the Bald Truth, because I kind of lucked out and was able to treat it relatively successfully, starting at a young age. And the key is to effectively treat it. It's early intervention. A lot of guys just, either their genetics are too aggressive or they just waited too long to really start treatment. And, look, it is what it is. But I have a question before I let you go, because a lot of guys are asking in the chat room. They want to know, and if you could do this briefly, how you got involved with the UFC.
Okay. The first guy I sponsored with that was actually Frank Trigg. And that was back, I think, when he fought Dennis Hallman. And he was infamous for, I think, giving him the finger after he beat Dennis. But I saw it, and actually it was through that woman that invented Skype, my ex-wife, who was working for one of the networks, and she had a contact that we got to go see the fights. And it was funny because a HeadBlade, a friend of mine, is Jesse James Leah, who was a world champ he was in boxing. And I remember the first UFC fight we went to, we were in the front row, and they actually put the camera on myself and my ex-wife, and she had her head covered, her eyes covered, because she just didn't want to watch the fight. But I saw it as a huge growing demographic, because it's athleticism, it's very aggressive, and a lot of guys shave their head because they work out all the time. I mean, in terms of
it's a perfect marriage. It's just perfect.
Yeah, and so we were fortunate in the early days to have our logo on the post, and a couple times we had it on the mat, and then we started doing individual fighter sponsorships. So the UFC has been great. We just can't afford to be on the post anymore, so we actually get pitched by most of all of the fighters with shaved heads. And then, unfortunately, once I sponsored, I like Tim Sylvia, and he's from Maine, and I sponsored him, but he doesn't shave his head.
Right.
And after I did that sponsorship, every guy with hair started writing us, asking us to sponsor them. So we went back to, hey, you got to shave your head and be known to have a shaved head. And there's a great video of Frank Trigg, who, after he retired, he's retired 10 times, but he was a broadcaster, and he grew his hair back out. And then he decided to start fighting again, decided to shave his head. So he came to the office, and he did. I think if you Google Frank Trigg HeadBlade, there's a video of him shaving his head with clippers and then with a HeadBlade, all in under like 4 minutes.
That's pretty cool. Well, listen, Todd, I wish we had more time to spend with you, and I'm sorry that we had some issues, at the beginning of the broadcast, but I'd love to have you back on. And honestly, I've had guests on that really have become like part of the community. They'll call in every once in a while. So I want you to feel free to call in if you have something to say. You're watching a broadcast or listening to the show, and something comes to mind that you want to talk about. And if you just want to discuss the word bald, call in a couple of weeks and we can talk about it.
I would love that. And I'll actually join in on the chat stuff too, in the forum.
All right, great. Listen, Todd Greene, the founder of HeadBlade and the inventor of HeadBlade. You can go to headblade.com. Todd, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure. And you know what? There's a lot more for us to talk about. So again, besides just calling in, at some point we can do another formal interview. I'd love to have you on the show again.
I appreciate it, Spencer. And if anybody wants to contact me, they can obviously, through the website, there's a link, Letter to the President, and it goes directly to me. So we can, keep that discussion going with a lot of your viewers through that as well.
All right, Todd. Listen, thanks a lot. We're going to give out the phone number.
Thank you.
All right, man. 718-717-2200. That's 718-717-2200. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dr. Glenn Charles, IHRS accepted member, Dr. Glenn Charles is calling in. He actually performed the first robotic FUE twin, identical twin to identical twin hair transplant a couple of weeks ago. Calling in to talk about that. It's really a groundbreaking first ever procedure. And we're going to talk about follicular unit extraction, robotic follicular unit extraction, the ARTIS system, and a lot more when we come back. Taking your calls, of course, 717-2200. I'm Spencer Kobren. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
He's an international best-selling author, a contributing editor for Consumer Digest magazine, and the host of the longest-running reality radio show for men. I'd say he's the man.
And the truth shall set you free!
It's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight's phone number, 718-717-2200. Want to make an announcement that this is going to be the very last Sunday night, The Bald Truth. We're actually moving after 14 years to Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. We're talking about this for a long time, and I think it's just it's time to do it. You know, been on the air every Sunday, never really had a weekend. And I'm just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to do the show on Tuesday nights. You know what I mean? And so for all you guys who are used to watching the broadcast or listening to the show on a Sunday night, we will still be, you know, iTunes Radio, Stitcher Radio, all the same resources, GFQ, you know, GFQlive.tv, thebaldtruth.com, Ustream, Justin TV, Stickam.com, but we're going to be on Tuesday nights. And, of course, we will continue on with the replays on GFQlive.tv and the on-demand stuff through The Bald Truth. So starting in July, we are going to be doing all our broadcasts live on Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. On the line, on hold, we have Dr. Glenn Charles, IHRS accepted member, who wanted to talk about what I consider to be a pretty groundbreaking surgical procedure that he performed a couple of weeks ago. The first robotic FUE hair transplant from one identical twin to another. So let's welcome Dr. Charles to the show. Dr. Charles, thanks so much for calling in tonight. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Can you hear me, Spencer?
I can. I mean, are you calling from a cell phone?
Actually, I was on a little wireless. Maybe I'm going to take it off that.
All right, let's see what we got. Now, I'm just curious, are you in front of your computer by chance?
No, but it could be in about 2 seconds.
Because the reason I ask is we have my guy that we work with, Andrew Zarian, who is the founder of the Guys from Queens Network and also the co-founder of the International Association of Internet Broadcasters, just got himself a USB densitometer. And after we talk about the procedure and everything that you did with the artist, he wants to kind of have his miniaturization assessed live on The Bald Truth. So if you have access to a computer, if you can sit in front of it, maybe you can help him out.
Hold on, let me walk back to the computer. So I heard that you're moving to Tuesday nights.
Yeah, we're moving to Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern prime time, which is great. And also, I'm going to get my weekends back after 14 years. Now, I mean, I work 7 days a week anyway, but it's nice to know that if I'm, you know, out of town, I don't have to worry about the program. So we're going to be starting that the first Tuesday of July. So while, you know, I mean, you don't have to get in front of your computer now, but if you're sitting there, great. Tell us about the procedure. I know that this is pretty groundbreaking. It was the first robotic FUE procedure done from one identical twin to another, and you know it was a kind of a labor of love. You did it pro bono because this is a kid who survived. Was it brain cancer?
Yes, cancer.
Yeah, and why don't you tell us about it? I didn't get a chance to see the video. I know that you said you're going to be sending us some video, which we'll be able to put up on the Bald Truth. But tell us a little bit about the procedure.
Yeah, well, I right now I can send some links from NBC and ABC who covered the story.
Okay.
I also personally took video of the whole entire procedure, which I plan on breaking up into smaller segments, and I'll get that over to you as soon as possible.
That'd be great.
It's a pretty incredible story, actually. I was contacted by a gentleman who happened to be the twins' father, and he sent me an email, and I read it. It was a heartbreaking story that I immediately felt, geez, if I could help the family, that would be great.
Yeah.
And I was under the assumption originally that he had probably sent that same email out to several doctors to kind of see what he was going to get back.
Right.
Ironically, afterward, he told me I was the only doctor he sent something to.
Wow.
So, I mean, it makes me feel like maybe there is karma and there is fate, because how would have he known that I had identical twins also, and that I was going to be the one that would say, I'll help you, I'll do whatever I can, I'll do the research. And it worked out good. Yeah. But so that's what I did. I basically told him, I'm not sure what we can do right now, but I'll start looking into if this is a possibility that I can help your sons. And through talking to a lot of my colleagues, which is how I did most of my research, I had to use some of my colleagues that have been around longer than I have and that I trust and know. For example, Dow Stowe helped me with quite a bit of information and led me to the right people. But it turns out that there are 3 other doctors that have actually done some grafting from an identical twin to another. There's a gentleman from South Korea, there's a gentleman from California, there's another one from Australia.
Well, I know. I mean, years ago, I remember Bill Rassman did a case from one twin to another.
There's a gentleman from California that I was referring to.
Yeah.
But I never got a lot of details about the case. The only important details I got was that some of the hair did grow and that they did not have to use immunosuppressant drugs.
Right.
Go along with the transplant to ensure that there would be some survival, because that was something that we really were interested in, is having to do other medications and causing other problems if we couldn't just do it a normal transplant from one person to another. In all 3 cases, they all reported that there was some hair growth, and that none of them used immunosuppressant drugs like they would normally use if you were getting a kidney or a heart or a liver transplant.
Now, how good was the hair growth, though? Because I remember Rassman saying at one point to me that it was basically identical to having, a native hair transplant, a person taking their own donor hair.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think, again, I'm still trying to get details. It's been hard because a lot of these guys are traveling in the summer, this time of the year, and to get details on the case.
Dr. Charles, I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you have another phone line that you might be able to use? Because the quality is really, really bad. Do you want to? Can you actually call in using Skype? You can use. You can call GFQ hotline. Are you on Skype?
Particular problem.
Say it again.
If I hang up and I call you right back on a landline, can I try that?
Yeah, give that a shot. All right.
All right, I'm going to call you right back.
Andrew will pick up. Thanks a lot. Phone number is 718-717-2200. Hopefully we can get Dr. Charles on the line on a decent connection, because I'm struggling listening to it. I can't even imagine what you guys are dealing with. So it's a pretty heartwarming story, and also I think it's great science, because it does show that if you are genetically identical, that you could not only obviously transplant hair follicles without using anti-rejection drugs. I'm assuming that you can transplant other bodily organs, like a kidney, for instance, without having to worry about anti-rejection drugs, which I think is pretty amazing. 718-717-2200. Andrew, are you there, man?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's going on in the chat room? You're writing me saying there's some craziness. What's happening?
Just the usual.
The usual nuttiness?
Just talking about jumping off the ledge. Somebody's yelling at somebody else. Whole thing.
That's why I thought it was great to have Todd on, because, Todd's a guy that's embraced this. He dealt with it. And he was made fun of. He's got the big ears he's complaining about, and he's dealt with whatever he had to deal with, shaving his head. But he doesn't think about his hair loss anymore. And I can't do that. I don't think you can do that either. But I think
no way I could pull that off.
Yeah, but you could pull it
just
off
emotionally too. I mean, even if I were to shave my head, I don't think I would ever be able to, accept it like a lot of other people are able to do. I envy those people, really.
Yeah, I do too, and that's why I kept saying, I didn't want to sound like I was stroking the guy, but I mean, I'm amazed at what he's done. And like I said, he contacted me when he started this company, and he was doing it out of his apartment. And at the time, he could not afford to advertise on the Bald Truth. I remember the conversation, and it was just like, I put out the price, and he was like, you know what, I'm a small company. I really can't afford it. I'm like, call me anytime. Maybe I should have just, taken him on. Who knows? And, kind of given him a little bit of a leg up. Not that he needed one, because he did just fine on his own. I mean, he's doing $9 million in sales a year, and this is a real niche product. I think he's doing just fine for himself.
I'll tell you something. He has the backing of the UFC, and I think Ultimate Fighting, and call me crazy, I think mixed martial arts and Ultimate Fighting have really made it a trend to shave your head. I think it's this whole manly thing where all these guys are shaving their heads, and I think it's made it popular and kind of acceptable.
Look, I think it's badass, man. I can't carry it off. I have kind of a softer, more youthful type of face. I don't have those hard, crazy big jawlines with the big eyebrows, and it just wouldn't work for me. But I think if you can pull it off, man, that's badass. You get really jacked, maybe grow like a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow, get a tan. It looks awesome, man. I wish that, and honestly, if I was able to do that, I'd just close up shop tomorrow.
That's it. Just take off, go to some island.
I would do something else. Maybe I'd work with Todd.
Maybe. We have Dr. Glenn Charles back on.
All right, let's see how it sounds. Hey, Dr. Charles.
Yeah, can you hear me any better?
Oh, much better. It's perfect.
Okay, what kind of questions do you have for me?
Well, basically what I want to know is, tell me about the procedure. Tell me about the day. Tell me about, this kid's story. Just kind of give everybody a little insight of what you guys did and the fact that now you are offering the artist robotic FUE hair transplants in your practice.
Well, I mean, it just happens to be kind of a coincidence that it all happened at the same time. I was already planning on getting the artist well before I was contacted by the twins' father.
Right.
And it just so happened that it was installed, and I'd already done my practice cases, and we were ready to go by the time he came in.
And so, what made you decide to use the artist as opposed to giving this kid a conventional strip procedure?
Okay, well, for starters, the brother who was donating did not want a linear scar.
Right.
So now I had a choice between my automated FUE, using the Power Safe, Dr. Harris's machine, or the artist.
Right.
And I just thought, I want to use what is more accurate. And that's why I got the artist. Because I don't think there's any way anyone can do FUE more accurately than the artist.
Well, let me ask you, so how many grafts did you remove from the donor?
We did about just under 1,000.
Okay. Now is this guy's brother realize that he may need more hair, and is he willing to give more hair up, for future procedures?
We talked about it as a family, and we agreed that I didn't want to do so little that it wouldn't make any difference, but I didn't want to do so many and find out that it doesn't work for some reason, and I used too much of the brother who had the donor, too much of his hair. I didn't want to do that until we knew it was going to work.
Now, do they have male pattern baldness in the family?
They have very little male pattern baldness in the family. There's a couple distant relatives who have it, and we're taking that into consideration. Austin is the brother who did not have the cancer, who's being the donor. And we're going to do, if this works, we're going to do a few cases, but we're still going to make sure he has some donor left in case he ever needs it for himself.
Right. Well, I think that, listen, I know that, my brother's not alive anymore, but, I would have given my brother a kidney. I would have given my brother part of my liver. But I don't know about my hair, Doc. That's a big one.
And in the morning of the procedure, when we had ABC and NBC there, and one of the anchors was interviewing the boys in my office, and this was before the procedure started, and they were telling their story, and I hadn't even ever heard it in that much detail coming directly from the kids. I heard the mothers and the fathers, stories, and a little bit from the kids, but not much, and it was heartbreaking. And I was supposed to get interviewed a few minutes after that. I couldn't even watch it The parents were tearing up. My whole staff was crying. I had to basically leave the room because I didn't want to have red eyes about to go into an interview. They were going to interview me afterwards.
Yeah.
It was just just what this kid was willing to do for his brother was really inspiring.
And how old are these guys?
They're 19, going to be 20. They're freshmen at University of Nebraska.
Wow. And so basically they're identical except for the one issue. This guy had, what did he have, radiation? And that's why his hair didn't grow back?
Radiation through his entire scalp and the upper part of his spine because the tumor was going down into the spine and they couldn't get that. You can't go into the spine.
Yeah.
And so he had the maximum doses of chemotherapy and the maximum doses of radiation. I mean, the fact that he's alive is a miracle.
Now, what about, was there any burning or scarring of his scalp?
Spencer. You talk to the parents, Spencer, and it's amazing because they think they're the luckiest family around.
Yeah.
Here they have a son who has cancer, almost died, and they think they're lucky, and it's just it's a humbling experience because all the young kids that he was in that cancer ward with are all dead now.
Yeah, you realize when you hear stories like that, just what bullshit we all worry about every day.
I know it really makes you step back and say, geez, all these little problems that I think I have are just not that big of a deal.
No, they're not. And you know what? They usually blow over. We talk about stuff. You and I speak about, issues that I've had with like being defamed online, this crazy lawsuit that I went through, and just the stress of that all, and stuff that, we all go through in this industry, being prominent in this industry. And the bottom line is, it's all about our health and the health of our loved ones and just being able to, live every day and somehow try to get the most out of life. People don't think of that. And, when you go through something like this family, they appreciate the little things in life, like being able to go to lunch together, being able to walk and to live and to breathe air and to see, and to see the sunrise. And I know that sounds, a little hokey or cliche, but I try to live that way myself, especially since I was just talking about losing my brother. But it's tough. You kind of forget about it. You kind of forget about it, and you start to sweat the small stuff again.
Close friends with cancer at a young age, and for a while you get really humbled, and then you kind of slip back into your old ways. And every once in a while something like this happens, and you kind of get reminded, like, you got to stop worrying about all the little bull crap.
That's right. That's right. Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, are you on The Bald Truth right now? Are you watching live? Because if you go to thebaldtruth.com, just make sure you turn your sound down. I want to see if we can get Andrew Zarian. Now, he's in New York, and I'm going to try to get his image online so you can see him. And he wants to. He's really concerned about his hair loss, and he went out which is minimal if he has any at all. He went out and got himself a USB densitometer, those microscopes, and he wanted to do something on the air. And I told him that I was having you on, and he said, you know what, let's try to do it tonight. So I don't know if you can make a medical assessment over the internet, but maybe, you can see whether or not he's...
I'm on The Bald Truth right now.
All right, so go to Watch Live.
Where is that now?
On top, you'll see there's a navigation bar, Home, The Show, Watch Live.
Hold on one second here.
Right under.
You know what? I think I'm on the forum.
Yeah, go to thebaldtruth.com.
Okay, I'm on Bald Truth Talk. That's what it is. Hold on one second.
All right.
That's why I'm not the.
Andrew, are you there, man?
I'm here, Spence.
Okay, so are you ready to do this?
Yeah, let me know when you want me to flip the camera to me.
Okay, now I see Home, The Show, and Watch Live. Okay,
Yeah.
click down and Watch Live.
And just turn down your sound because there's probably going to be a commercial running, a rolling commercial, and then you'll see me.
My volume on my computer.
Yeah, make sure that's down.
Okay, it's just coming in now. Okay, I see it. I see it sitting there.
All right. Did a commercial start to roll or no?
No, I see with this.
All right, good. So, I'm going to flip over to Andrew. Andrew, why don't you put your camera on for a sec, and then we can see if we can make this happen.
All right. So I'm in the studio now.
All right. So this is my friend, partner, and confidant, Andrew Zarian, live in New York. Guys from Queens. He's concerned about his receding hairline, or at least.
For you.
Okay.
He claims he has a receding hairline, but this guy's got more hair than God. But you know what? He's young. He's only 28 years old. So I mean, maybe something's happening. And we've been talking about this for a long time. You know, he's panicked about it. Say that again?
Are you going to be showing me some close-ups with that camera using in the hairline or in the donor area?
Probably in the hairline, just to see if he has some miniaturization, and then he can do the donor area too. What do you suggest that he does? What do you suggest he does? What do you want to see first?
I think he should have a 5,000 graft hair transplant immediately.
I think Dr. Charles wants me to leap off the ledge.
No, but what do you think? Where do you want to see? Where do you want the camera? Where do you want him to hold the densitometer?
You're going to show me the front, in the hairline area. That's the area that he has a concern with. I mean, obviously he's got really good donor, but it's really hard to use those cameras and show density in the donor unless you have like a shaved area, unless you have another person holding the hair apart.
Yeah.
In the hairline, I could potentially see if I can see miniaturized hairs and that kind of stuff.
All right,
so I do want to say this before I put this on. I went to a doctor. I don't want to name the name, but I went to a doctor a couple months ago, right? Spent about 2 months ago.
Yes.
And they used the densitometer to kind of assess what's happening. What I saw in his office and what I'm able to see here in the studio with the densitometer, it's really different. So I don't know if I'm looking in the wrong areas or something has changed in 2 months.
You also told me this. You also said that once you told him you were my boy, everything changed. That's what you told me.
Everything also, yeah, that also changed. Also, no, it looks better in the studio than it did in the office.
I wonder if they were, able to pull the hair apart a little more and make it look a little more sparse. I don't know what some doctors do to make, but I mean, in young people that have really good hair like that, I would be surprised if someone's trying to push you into doing surgery because you only do that kind of stuff if it's necessary.
Now, Dr. Charles, the chat room at thebaldtruth.com, they're telling me that I'm out of my mind, but I do want to say that my hairline has gone back a good amount. I mean, it's a maturing hairline, obviously, and right. I'm not 18 years old anymore, but the last 6 months, I have seen a lot of hair fall out.
Are you finding the hair like in the brush and the sink?
In the shower mostly.
Okay.
I mean, I try to count it as much as I can, but it's pretty difficult to do that.
The young lady's pulling on your hair, that doesn't count, right?
No. I'm not counting. Okay. So I have it right here. So
he's married, so I don't think he has anybody pulling on his hair anymore.
No, that stopped on the honeymoon. All right, so I've taken my headphones off, so I'm going to try to hear you guys as much as I can. But let me just put it, I guess, the front area, right, Dr. Charles?
Yeah, like right in the very front.
Okay, so on the side or right in the middle?
I would do it more toward, do a little bit there, and then you'll do some over in the corner, more toward the corner.
So I'm going to flip it to that. Now let's try to focus.
Oh my God, it's all over, dude.
That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good view. I mean, I have to say that it's relatively clear. And as you know, when you have whites, lighter skin, which you have lighter colored skin and darker hair, the spaces appear to be more prominent, and you are looking at a pretty heavy level of magnification. So those spaces between the where the hairs are exiting the scalp appears to be a little more spread apart than maybe someone would imagine, and they probably are a little more spread apart than other areas of your scalp, but then again, in the hairline, they kind of are supposed to be.
So let me see if I could spread it apart a little bit more.
Now, again, I'm not a physician, but I don't see a lot of miniaturization. I see a separation, and I see maybe there are areas where their grafts or follicular units aren't growing. But what I see growing, it looks pretty thick.
I do see some finer hairs. But then again, people do have a mix. Every single one of someone's hairs are not the same diameter.
Right.
So having a little bit of variation in diameter is not really that strange either. Even if you went back in the donor area, you're going to see that. But you probably just wouldn't see as much space in between where the hairs are exiting the scalp.
So let me try to move this to right in the center. Let's see if...
Now, is that your widow's peak in the center of your hairline?
It's my widow's peak.
Yeah, that's a good image.
I don't see a lot of what we like really short miniaturized hairs. I agree with Spencer on that. I just see some hairs that appear to be full length, but they're just not, and maybe it's quite as good thick as far as diameter is concerned as some of the other hairs. But they don't feel short. I don't see a lot of damaged hairs, a lot of short hairs. I also don't see a lot of new hairs coming out of the scalp that might be just cycling hairs. Do you have a family history of hair loss?
My grandfather, my mother's side, everybody's bald.
On your mother's side, Dad's got pretty good hair though.
Yeah. His is all right. I mean, his side. I mean, I'll go down the list. His uncles are in their 80s and they have crazy hair.
Unfortunately, you could have gotten a combination of genes from both sides of the family, and it's really hard to pinpoint that. What might be happening is this was your time to kind of grow into your adult hairline.
And that's what I'm trying to tell him, Doc. He doesn't want to believe me. He thinks that I'm trying to spare his feelings. I'm like, look, there are a lot of guys that, you'll see a slight recessed hairline. They call it a mature hairline, and sometimes it stays that way for 20 years. If you don't see a lot of shedding, you don't see a lot of miniaturization, if you don't see a significant change, then I just think he should wait. He's talking about getting on Propecia. It may not be a bad idea, but sometimes, as you know, that could exacerbate the hair loss in some people. And he could just go through this, terrible shedding phase, which I think would be awful for the guy.
Well, it is a tough call. It's a tough call because you don't know if Propecia is really going to have any effect in the frontal area anyways. And you hate to expose people to other side effects or start kind of stirring up some shedding in other areas. But then again, you don't want to wait too long. It's a really tough decision on when to start and if you should even start at all.
Yeah, that's the thing about my situation. When I started, when it was ProScar and people didn't know about it, no one knew about the shedding phase. It was like there were doctors who would say that, they were concerned about potential side effects, but you weren't reading stuff online, about you potentially getting worse before you get better, or in some cases, guys just go through a shed and it's just not for them.
Well,
I got on the drug. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What happened with me was that the last 8 to 6 months, I saw. Compared to the normal amount of hair loss that I have, I saw a significant hair loss compared to what I normally, I guess, lose, and that's what kind of accelerated this whole "oh my God, I'm losing my hair" thing with me.
Maybe you got to stop. Maybe you got to stop the pills, dude.
And that might be it, Spence. I don't know.
I think it's the drugs.
I think it might be the drugs. But
the fact that you take Tylenol PM to go to sleep every night.
Well, yeah, maybe that might be doing something. Maybe I'm hallucinating at this point. But what I was reading was that there are certain times that when you're at a certain age, you might have excessive shedding. Your hair might fall out, and then it just stops after a cycle.
Yeah, it depends, and Dr. Charles will tell you. It really depends on the person. Sometimes, I started early, and I caught it early, and I was lucky because I didn't have the fear of the drug, whatever it is, and it worked for me. So, while I can't pull my hair back like you because it's like, it would look like 2 inches higher, I still was able to. I'm 47 years old. I saved a lot of hair, so I feel, I'm one of the fortunate guys. But now with all of the stuff that's going on about finasteride, I think. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Doc, I think even physicians who have been prescribing it for years are a little extra cautious now about prescribing it to a young dude, especially when they are kind of on the cusp of hair loss and they're not really sure if they are, in fact, dealing with male pattern baldness.
Yeah, I do agree. I agree with that, Spencer. There's a little more caution now. I have to say I'm kind of skeptical about these reports of permanent impotence and these class action suits that are going against Merck right now. I am unconvinced at this point that those are real, and that these aren't just people that are trying to, make a payday off of a pharmaceutical company.
Whether it's real or not, and I think that there are guys out there. There are plenty of guys out there that really. I think there's a subset of guys that are really suffering with these adverse side effects. However, as far as the lawsuits are concerned, that's the nature of the game. You got to understand these ambulance chasers that go after these drug companies. It is a payday. However, you got to give it to them. In some cases, for the guys who really do believe they're suffering from these adverse side effects. It's just unfortunate that a lot of guys are just going to jump on the bandwagon whether they're really suffering or not.
I think it's a combination of three things. I mean, I think there are a very small portion of people that are suffering from this. I believe that. There's also the ambulance chases where they're thinking they could get some sort of payday from this. And the other part is that there are people that are probably affected with the side effects, but it's not necessarily from Propecia. It's probably due to other things in their lives. I've been, since working with the show, I've been looking at a lot of the people that are complaining on the forum, saying that, they're suffering from erectile issues and they're suffering from all these other side effects. But there's other things that come into effect, like their age, what are the medications they're on, their personal health, the shape that they're in. So a lot of this stuff is attributed to, the problems that they're having. It's not necessarily this one drug.
Well, look, if you read Ball Truth Talk forums, there are guys that have been on the drug for 10 years that decide to get off because of what's being written about the drug and what's going on online. And then they're saying, well, when I think about it, I did have side effects and maybe they weren't that severe, but I'm very concerned about them now. Look, I'm 47 years old now. I've been on the drug for almost 18 years. I can't believe that I've been on it for so long. If I start to wane in that department, am I going to blame the drug or am I going to blame the fact that I'm almost 50? You know what I mean, Doc? I mean, and there are people out there that are on, what's his name? Chris Webb from the National Hair Journal was on it for like 10, 12 years. And he wrote that he decided to stop taking it because of all the, the stuff that's been happening. And I think after the Men's Health article came out, he decided not to take it anymore. And this is a guy who's in the industry. So, there's a lot of fear out there. I understand it, but...
How much of a negative effect he had from stopping.
Say that again?
So I wonder if what happened to his hair since he stopped.
Who knows? I know he had a couple of transplants with Bosley, and that worked out for him, and he's been on the drug for a while. But I just think that... I don't know what to think, honestly. I think there's a lot of guys who, could benefit from the drug who are so shit scared to take it now because of everything that's going on that, now they're, there's a lot of guys who are, depressed. They're hoping against hope that one of these new technologies, or one of these new, like whether it's histogen or Adirans or Replicel is going to come out tomorrow. We know that's not going to happen. And in the meantime, a lot of these guys can treat themselves effectively and live great lives and enjoy their hair until this stuff comes out, but they're too afraid to do so. So I don't know. At this point, I'm almost afraid to tell people to take it. And again, I'm not a doctor.
To see a clinical trial done where they do give finasteride to these, the patients in the trial, but they don't tell them it's finasteride. They tell them it's some other new hair loss drug, and I would love to see if they still suffer from these side effects.
Well, if you it's possible if you said that it's just another drug that there's no chance of causing impotence, and actually it has the opposite effect. I think you'd be surprised at how many people actually are walking around with a constant heart on. But that's just our theory. Anyway, Dr. Charles, I really appreciate you taking the time to check out Andrew's hair. He's been bugging me. This guy calls me at midnight, Skypes me and asks me to look at his hair. So I figured, let's get a professional to take a look.
Anything to help you guys out. I just trying to get back a little bit, and I enjoy answering questions and helping people out.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm really excited that you actually now have the artist. You're like the only guy in your area that's using the robotic hair transplant machine.
Yeah, right now I'm the only one in the southeast United States that has it. I think the closest artist right now is with Bernstein up in New York.
Yeah, so it's you, it's Bernstein, I think, that have it now. You got Craig Zarian out here that has it. I know there's a guy in Atlanta that may be getting it. It's still a pretty, listen, I think it's a great device. I think that, anything that's going to evolve, this side of hair transplantation. We know FUE is here to stay. I've been promoting and pushing FUE since Dr. Woods contacted me in 1999. It's only taken, 13 years or so to become more mainstream.
Let me tell you, I did a lot of, I went out to visit Dr. Harris quite a bit when he first got the artist machine. And I just know that, I was doing a lot more FUE cases, a lot more and more younger people are asking about it, requesting it. They want to keep that option available to wear short hair later. There's the talk about the scars, even though the scars are really good now. But still, I knew that this was a procedure that was definitely here to stay. It wasn't going away. It wasn't a fad.
Right.
And when we did these studies where we took, the Power Safe scribe, Dr. Harris's automated unit, or another automated unit like the NeoGraft, and then did 20 or 30 grafts on a patient, and on the same patient took 20 or 30 grafts from the artist, and we compared the grafts under the microscopes. These grafts look like they were cut under a microscope, like a strip.
I know the grafts are very robust, and I think the unique thing is that the artist actually scores the scalp with like a 1 millimeter punch, and then it kind of spreads once it's underneath the scalp, so that you can get a bigger piece of tissue around the follicular unit, which is ingenious.
In the angle where people have, where hairs exit the scalp and then kind of change an angle as it goes underneath the scalp.
Yeah.
It just, there's a lot of involvement. I have to say, it's one of the biggest surprises for me when I actually started using it is how much involvement there is for the doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, every single time that machine fires, you're looking at all these specific numbers and making adjustments continually. It's not like, I think a misconception is that it's robotic and now the doctor's not doing anything. And you're pushing a button and you're walking out of the room and the robot's doing the work, and that's not true. It's every second involvement by the doctor.
Well, what I like about artists and the way they're marketing their product, they're really marketing it only, at least at this point, to the skilled hair transplant surgeon. Unlike some other devices who are really going for the cosmetic guy or the plastic surgeon, the guys that aren't necessarily involved in hair. These other companies are marketing their devices to just increase a physician's income, and this is really being marketed to guys who are at the top of their field in hair transplantation. That's why you got one, and I hope that the artist
stays that way.
Continues to stay that way.
Yeah, I hope they do consider who they're selling that machine to. I mean, I know they want to sell machines, and that's how that company makes money. But at the same time, if you're selling it to people who are not doing good work, it's going to give the whole artist thing a bad name and a bad rep. And
it's going to set hair transplantation back, decades. And I said the same thing with the NeoGraft. You really, once people start to use these devices and get procedures by, and the way these procedures are being marketed, it's kind of like 21st century hair transplantation. You don't want to start giving it a bad name. If people are unhappy, then that word spreads. And sadly, it taints the entire industry because there's such great work being done now. That's always been my fear with any of these devices. But I do think, at least so far, Artis has been doing a great job. And there's only a handful of guys who are really, really experts in this field who are using it. So let's just hope it stays that way. Dr. Charles, listen, I know it's late. Thanks so much for hanging out. And, just feel free. Anytime you want to call the show, feel free to call in.
I will. I'll start. Tuesday nights are actually probably better for me. So I'll definitely call in some Tuesday nights. I'll start getting some videos on the website so people can start viewing some more stuff about the twins and about the artists. I'll start putting a whole bunch of artist cases on there.
Great.
People can see it, because I know that you can talk about it, but until people actually see what that robot's doing, it's hard to understand it.
No, and I agree. And in your assessment of Andrew, he should just leave things alone right now. What do you think?
I think right now he should just keep a close eye on it. I mean, you can always start on Propecia. That's not going away. I definitely don't think he's a surgical candidate right now.
Right.
I think that if he tried to put a bunch of grafts in between those hairs that are there on that hairline, he would cause a bunch of hair loss. He'd end up right back to where he started.
Right.
All right. I don't think he's in a position where surgery would be the best option for him right now. He's got to just keep a close eye on it. If it continues to recede, then you got to jump on the Propecia real fast and see if you can, hold things off.
All right, Doc, listen, I appreciate the honest assessment. Dr. Glenn Charles, accepted IAHRS member. You can check him out. You can go to IAHRS.org and check out his profile, or you can go to, it's charlesmedical.com, right?
Either charlesmedicalgroup.com or charleshair.com.
Okay. All right, Doc, listen, thanks a lot.
Hey, good night.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. 718-717-2200. I don't know if Joe's still hanging on. He's probably mad at me, but I had to take these calls, man. These guys wanted to come on. They're my guests. So, Joe, I hope you don't hate me for that.
Am I on the air, Spencer?
Yes.
No, Spencer. I hate you. I love you, man. You're beautiful.
I'm just fucking with you. I appreciate that.
No, I wish I would have got a chance to interview Dr. Charles. Maybe I misunderstood him. Did he say you can transplant hair from one patient to another without anti-rejection drugs in some cases?
Well, you can if they are genetically identical at this point. That's what they're figuring out. Now, I don't know if they are, you know, we do know, and we talked about this before. They're, you know, what's his name? Colin Yehoda actually transplanted his wife's hair into his own arm, you know, and it worked just fine. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's a major thing to know. I mean, plenty of people we willing to sell their hair. These guys will pull up his hair, give $10,000. I'm sure they give you 3,000 or 4,000 grams.
Dude, I would take, even though Andrew thinks he's losing his hair, I would take his donor hair. Even though it would look ridiculous on me, but I'd take it.
Andrew 2 weeks ago. First of all, he's a very handsome boy, and he has absolutely no hair loss whatsoever. He's a slightly mature hairline.
Andrew, put your camera on.
Yeah, it's all his hair.
All right. On me? There we go.
Very handsome boy.
And
Very handsome.
I'm a hair loss expert, but as you know, when I examined him, you saw me, he has no hair loss. He may have been affected by the bald truth, by being involved with the show, I think.
You think that's what did it?
I think that's the problem. I think everyone's affected by the bald truth. Once someone, it's like crack for potential balding guys or balding guys. Once someone catches a show, they're hooked to it. That's it. They think they're balding.
Well, it's like it really screws you up, and I think that's why you've been so successul at this. People get totally messed up from this.
But that's not my intent. I don't want to fuck people up. You know, I'm trying to help people. But I've known guys, you know, and guys have called the show. I remember there's one guy when I used to be on when I was on WJFK in D.C. He was a young guy, 17 years old, and he used to call the program, and he had no hair loss, and he was so screwed up. And I told him stop listening to the show. About 8 years later, he contacted me to thank me because he was starting to lose his hair, and he said all the information I provided him is helping him now. But he was obsessed at 17. He had no hair loss. So, you know, look, it is what it is.
Spencer, by the way, I want to congratulate you on your history interview. I'm glad most people were very happy with it. I thought you might have been attacked, but most people were very happy with you.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good to know. I'm glad when people are happy with me. Usually I get some sort of shit from a lot of people.
Bottom line is, he thinks it's a great product. He doesn't know when it's going to be. You know, he doesn't really know when it's going to be out, or he's not saying. And he's doing trials himself in the United States. That's the impression I got. And he believes it will work in scar tissue.
Well, he is doing trials himself, and he's going to be doing another trial. And I think I've convinced him because he contacted me afterwards to do video. None of these guys really do, you know, high-def video for any of these types of trials, and we're going to try to figure out what the protocol is. He has to figure it out with the company and also, you know, with the FDA and all that stuff to see what a good protocol would be, because right now all they have is a photographic protocol. I think video is necessary, especially now. I mean, you know, everyone wants to see video. You know, we're in the age of the internet. You want to see, you know, pictures are great, but video usually doesn't lie.
Didn't he say that he would release some pictures on the internet soon, or that those would be released to you?
Yeah, he's going to be providing us here at the Bald Truth with exclusive images, at least according to Dr. Zarian. So hopefully we'll get that in the next few weeks, and we can get them up for you guys to see.
I think that should be soon, and you really don't know when.
I have no idea. I don't.
Spence, you have to follow online too.
All right, a lot of players in the chat room want to clear up. There'll be no show this Tuesday. It'll be starting next Tuesday. Is that correct?
Yeah, next Tuesday. Let's see. Let me look at my calendar here. So it'll start Tuesday the 3rd of July.
Tuesday, July the 3rd?
Tuesday, July the 3rd. Is that all right?
No. Yeah, you're right. Right. Tuesday, July the 3rd. Yes. Right.
No. You going to correct me, Joe?
Yes, no, you're correct. Spencer, all these years have been together. You should have given yourself off for weekends. I always wonder why you did Sunday nights. I always said don't
Well, the reason I did Sunday nights is because I was on the radio, and the only night that I would be able to get at a decent time for the Bald Show was on a Sunday. They shoved me in the corner for weekend programming. And you know what? And believe me, I was grateful that I was able to get on the air. But that's what it was, Sunday night programming. I could have done it Saturday, but I thought that Sunday was probably a better fit for what we were doing, and it worked. But now I don't have to worry about that. So I can make my own hours, make my own time, and we're going to be doing the show Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. here on the West Coast, and Sunday nights I'm going to be free. So listen, we have a call. I'm going to take a quick call, Joe, and then we'll come back to you.
Thanks, Spencer. Yeah, I love you, man. You know that. Please.
Don't worry about it. I feel the same way, Joe. Hey, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Spencer. Spencer, what's up? This is John calling from New York. I called about a month ago and mentioned to you at length about possible treatments or cures for hair loss. Do you remember me?
I do remember you, man. You sent me an email with your correspondence with some other doctors, right?
Good. Yeah, you got it. I was gonna ask if you looked into some of that stuff.
Well, you know what? I really have not. And to be honest with you, it's not that I didn't think that it was something that I should be looking into, but I've been dealing with a lot of bullshit for the last couple of months, and also traveling a lot and dealing with a lot of nonsense. I just, I'm talking about it now. I just prevailed in this pretty groundbreaking online defamation lawsuit against a hair transplant doctor here in Los Angeles. And so I was kind of...
I'm going to tell you something, Spencer. If it's who I think it is, I was on the forum and I saw a post where someone got butchered by that doctor, and I actually just searched for that doctor and I saw this guy should be thrown in jail. There's no two ways about it,
Yeah, well, that's the guy, and he ended up not just defaming me, but defaming other guys in the industry and also his own patients online. And I chose to kind of let things happen. I gave him about a year or so to kind of, hang himself, which he did. And I decided to, I spoke to some guys in the industry. They didn't want to put out the money. They didn't want to deal with it. They didn't want to deal with any retribution. But I said, you know what? I'm going to have to sue this guy. And even though it's online defamation, which is usually very difficult to prevail in, I knew that I could. So we basically set a precedent in our field and also here in the state of California. We won a very substantial financial judgment, but more importantly, it was the moral judgment, the moral win. And I'll be writing more about it. This guy recently closed his practice in Beverly Hills, and I don't know where he's living at this point, but he did a really bad thing. He hurt a lot of people, and he attempted to destroy my reputation online and said a lot of really crazy things, like I was committing fraud and I was being investigated by the IRS, that I was being investigated by the FBI.
That's something that's really such a contradiction to me, because when you get companies like Allergan or companies like that who are, I think, generally out to help people, with the Latisse drug possibly for hair loss,
right.
The government is all over them.
Right.
Yet when it comes to these bad hair transplant doctors, there is no regulation whatsoever.
Nothing.
And the butchery that they've committed has been going on for decades and decades, and right in plain view, yet there's no regulation for it whatsoever. So it's a total contradiction the way I see it.
Well, and that's what's interesting is, because I have exposed the industry over the years, I've made a lot of enemies. And the truth is, this has been done to me before. And, as a consumer advocate, that's just what it is. I've written about, on the message forum that, Ralph Nader, and, there are some guys who say, how can you compare yourself to Ralph Nader? But in our field and what I do, it's I am a consumer advocate. Ralph Nader was viciously attacked and kind of set up by GM after he wrote his book and after he exposed what was happening in the car industry. And, it was a different world back then. And what they did apparently back then was they kind of, sent, they tried to catch him, they sent prostitutes to his room and tried to catch him on film with women and all this crazy stuff to try to destroy his reputation. If you read about it, you can read about it on Wikipedia.
Try and set him up, that is what I'm saying.
Say it again?
No, I said I wouldn't put it past people for them to try and set Nader up.
Right. Well, that's what happened, and it's actually, if you look at Wikipedia, I mean, it was exposed in the press. But now we live in a different world. So there are guys out there like this particular hair transplant doctor that decided to do this, not only to me but to other guys in the industry and to his colleagues and to at least one of his patients, which was amazing to me, violating HIPAA laws. So I decided to go after him. We won. It's huge, and actually we're going to get I have to kind of hold back on the press. However, it says a lot to the way that this industry is. There's some really, really bad people out there that will do anything to try to deflect from what they're doing to people and try to destroy not just my reputation, but anybody who's doing anything good in this field.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, Spencer, do you mind if I bring a couple of more things to your attention? I know you're really running low on time and everything right now.
We got about 2 minutes, but yeah, go ahead. And then you know what? If you call in early next week on Tuesday, I'm going to have my phone system working. We can spend more time with you.
Oh, this Tuesday?
Next Tuesday, the 3rd, is my first Tuesday night show. So we're going to be doing live every Tuesday night from starting in July.
Okay, very cool. So I'll bring this one quick thing to your attention. I've read all over the internet about how stem cells have cured various diseases or have improved quality of life tremendously for people suffering from such diseases as Parkinson's.
Yes.
And I read a very interesting story about how stem cells cured a young boy suffering from a rare disease called recessive epidermolysis bullosa, where basically their skin is extraordinarily fragile,
right,
and tearing and blistering occurs with minimal friction, leading to painful wounds and scarring, and solid food produces erosion in the esophagus.
Wow.
So basically they can't hold down any food, and death results from malnutrition, infections, or aggressive skin cancer. And apparently a test was conducted on one such boy where they infused him with bone marrow and umbilical cord blood stem cells, and they basically cured this boy of this previously incurable disease. And what really caught my eye about this was this treatment was developed by Angela Cristiano. I'm sure you know who she is.
Absolutely, I know her personally.
Yeah. And this is called basically a quote unquote circulating stem cell technique. What I mean by circulating stem cell is where the stem cells migrate to the site of a particular defect and then work to repair or correct that defect. And what I saw also as significant with this is that these bone marrow and umbilical cord stem cells were used to treat a condition which is not related to bone marrow or cord blood,
right,
which leads to further credence what I mentioned in my call about a month ago, is that when certain stem cells are implanted into another part of the body, these stem cells can really quote unquote change track and take on the properties of the surrounding environment. So that's what I'm really thinking with relation to hair loss. If healthy stem cells were somehow taken from another part of the body, maybe adipose tissue or bone marrow, and then implanted into places where hair follicles previously were, they could perhaps change track and take on the characteristics of their surrounding environment.
I'll tell you what. You send me that information. I will have Dr. Cristiano on the show. I haven't had her on the show in like 7 years. And I'd like to talk about, her, what she developed and see how it might relate to hair loss, because really that's her thing. And I think it would be interesting. Yeah. And, you should definitely call in for that broadcast so that you can talk to her personally.
Oh God! Wow, I think that would be totally awesome.
I'll make it happen. Just remind me. Send me an email. I will contact her. I'll give her a call. Haven't spoken to her in a long time. I'm sure she's doing fine. And I like to have her on the program for the new Tuesday night show. I think it'll be a good way to kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, that would be totally awesome, because, I mean, the reason why I research all this stuff, I mean, for one, because hair loss is so drastically and negatively affected my life. I mean, everything, I won't go out as much, it's just a whole load of things, And then also, just the treatment options. We just have such a lack of treatment options, I read on IAHRS surgeon's website, there was a statistic that said out of today's hair loss sufferers, only 2 to 7% actually seek treatment.
Right.
And that obviously isn't because we don't give a shit about our hair loss, and we don't want to regrow our hair. It's just like a lot of the treatments are just so minimally effective that
no one believes that anything can help them, because everyone's just we're so used to this the whole snake oil mentality of the hair loss industry. And we see so many balding people around that, unless you are hyper concerned about your hair loss, like our community is, a lot of people they don't think anything could really be done. And also, because of all the media attention, and even when Propecia first came out, it really was kind of like, well, there's this great treatment for hair loss, but it can, you basically, you're choosing your hair or you're choosing your sex life. And even back then, before this recent influx of information about possible long-term adverse side effects, people were deathly afraid of the drug. So most people never even took the time to treat it. And I do think that more people could have potentially, a higher percentage of people could have potentially been helped if the information was readily available through the mainstream media.
See, I agree. I kind of agree with you more or less with Propecia.
Yeah.
But in terms of regrowth, the way I see it, why most people won't treat their hair loss, it's just the results from, like, whether it's a hair transplant or Rogaine or whatever, that even the best possible results just aren't satisfactory to them. I mean, Rogaine I just see is very, very minimally effective. And even with the hair transplant, I mean, for a person to undergo, head scarring, to have that permanent head scarring, it's like, I mean, if that could regrow a full head of hair, I'd do it in a second.
Right.
But unfortunately, it just, relocates hair from one part of the scalp to the other, and that unfortunately can't even come close to achieving a full head of hair. So, I mean, honestly, the way I really see it, it's just like that the results of even the best possible outcomes of some of these therapies are just not even satisfactory to your average male, So that's why I think that 2 to 7% the treatment factor comes into play. Would you mind if I mention one more thing to you real quick about an article I read? Or
what? Do you think it's going to take more than a minute?
I could do it really quick.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, I'll do it really quick. In 2007, a doctor named Jan Barendon and several other researchers discovered that when stem cells from the thymus of rats are taken and implanted into the skin and hair, these thymus cells subsequently take on the properties of the surrounding environment and become skin and hair. And that's what I was talking about before. And this is another set study where stem cells from another part of the body are implanted into a proper surrounding environment. They can, as I said before, change track and become functioning stem cells of the environment that they're implanted into. So that lends further credence to what I believe, that if maybe healthy stem cells were extracted from bone marrow or umbilical cord blood or adipose, that if they were injected into places where hair follicles used to be, that they could change track and take on the properties of that environment and actually become hair stem cells. So that kind of just kind of backs up and gives further credence to what I said before.
Well, I definitely want to have Dr. Cristiano on the show to talk about this. And if you can send me the information about what you were talking about earlier, and I will do a little research myself, I will contact her and see if we could have her on, maybe the first week of July or sometime in July.
Awesome.
All right, man?
Actually, if you could, I mean, I really don't need to bug you here, but if you remember, I mentioned in my previous call about a month ago about Dr. Marwa Fawzi's study where she treated those kids with alopecia areata.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that study that I told you about?
I remember the conversation. I don't remember the entire study, but I remember you telling me about it.
Oh, okay, cool. So, so as a matter of fact, if I could send you that information along with it as well, because that was really something where she actually grew a full head, almost a full head of hair.
That's right.
You
actually sent that to me, but send it to me again, and send me the Angela Cristiano study. And I'm going to call Angela Cristiano because it sounds pretty exciting, and I haven't spoken to her in a long time, and I would love to get this out there. And I will do it on the Ball Truth Talk as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got no problem. I'll send it to you right after I get off the phone.
All right, man. Listen, thanks for the call. You're always a great caller, and I'll maybe announce when I have her on the program so you know. But next time, call in early so we can get all of your stuff in.
Yeah, actually, I was going to, but then I saw, like, right when I called it, right when I turned on, you had the HeadBlade guy in, and then right after that, Dr. Charles. So, I wasn't, if I wasn't sure, I would have gotten put on the air then. So.
Oh, I hear you. All right, man. Well, listen, John, right?
Yep.
Okay, John. Listen, thanks a lot. Send me that stuff, and I'll definitely contact Dr. Cristiano and see if we can get some more information.
Spencer, I totally appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
All right, you got it. Guys, I'm going to close up shop. Let's say goodnight to Joe. Joe, I want to say goodnight to you, man.
I just want to say on behalf of the millions of viewers listening now, Spencer, I want to say thank you for all the Sunday nights you've given up for us hair loss sufferers. We really appreciate it, man.
Well, listen, it was my pleasure. And you know what? I'm looking forward to doing the show on Tuesday, and hopefully we're going to capture a different audience and grow what we've already been growing for the last 14 years. Guys, Andrew, listen, thanks a lot for hanging out and working. Hopefully next week you won't have to do this because I'll have my phone system.
Hey, maybe I might be doing it next week because you might need a call screener for the new system.
That's true. I have to figure out, I hope I can install this thing myself.
It is an impressive call-in system.
Yes, and we'll talk about it once I get everything installed. Guys, let me give out the website, The Bald Truth, or the websites, thebaldtruth.com. If you are wanting to share information, learn from other guys who are dealing with hair loss, if you need a place to vent, check out baldtruthtalk.com. You can talk to other hair loss sufferers who are really there to help each other deal with a situation that, sadly, society doesn't really allow us to talk about. So when you're not listening to The Bald Truth or watching The Bald Truth, baldtruthtalk.com is a great place to go. If you want to check out the American Hair Loss Association, AmericanHairLoss.org. And if you're a woman dealing with hair loss, you know what? Check out womenshairlossproject.com. It's an incredible site, the best women's hair loss community on the internet. We highly recommend womenshairlossproject.com. And let's see, someone wants to give a shout out. Yeah, dude. Billy wants to give John a shout out. We're going to be putting more information, John's information out there online. John, you should also go to baldtruthtalk.com and share your information, the stuff that you share here on The Bald Truth, with our baldtruthtalk.com readers. Until next time, yeah, go ahead.
Can I just get a quick plug? I'm going to be broadcasting live right after your show on Chase's show, geekgamer.tv.
Oh, you're kidding me? That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to be on right now. So if you want to watch or listen, you can go to gfqlive.tv and you can watch it.
All right, absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it. I love Chase. All right, guys, until next time, which is next Tuesday, July the 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern, be strong, God bless, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you. Good night.